Beatnik Casbah, Part 2, 1951. Mum's parents lived around the corner at Bardwell Avenue in Richmond. To water his garden, Grandpa dug furrows. Well, they became rivers for my toy boats. It was a jungle war, and I was a bomber, dropping bombs, small rocks, on the enemy, ants, along its bank. 15 years later, stimulant drugs made me feel empathy for the first time, so I apologised to the ants and did holy Buddhist rituals to help their souls. Mum had to drag me to school when I was 6. The noisy kids and stern teachers were scary, so I pretended my classroom was an office, like I'd seen in the Spencer Tracy Katharine Hepburn movie Woman of the Year. It then became fun because I was doing important stuff in my office. I'd seen plenty of Hollywood musicals at the movies, so I knew that love was something that all heroes gave and got. Leonie Harper was 6 and so pretty. She usually played with Philip Mules, so I hated him. Besides, he had a pedal car with actual gears, which was a big deal in 1951. I prayed for God to make mules get sick, and it worked. One day he was absent, so I offered to carry Leonie's school bag home, and she said she'd carry mine. One afternoon, we kissed twice. Then one morning, she was gone, and a sign on her house said, "For sale." I felt sad for a whole day. Rosemary Carter tried to walk home with me, but she had ringworms. I didn't know what they were or what they looked like, but I didn't go near in case they knew how to jump over into my ring. Alongside Moss Avenue was an abandoned railway line. I saw Rosemary there. She said, "Show me yours and I'll show you mine," she offered. I took mine out and her eyes grew big. "Yours is not like me brother's or me dad's or me uncle's. Yours has got a little hat on it." Then she raised her dress and I saw a tiny thing like the end of a rounded salmon bone. Unknown to me, Mum was behind a bush watching, but she didn't interrupt. And that night she told Dad and they laughed. I liked that. Years later, when I was a teenager, telling lies about sex, a kid said, you never been near pussy. You wouldn't know what they look like." "I do so," I expounded. "I seen tons. They look like salmon bones." For a whole week I was called that idiot kid who thinks girls have salmon bones in their twats. Dad sold our nice wooden hut and bought a brick house at 5 Sarah Street, Marsden. It was right near Richmond Primary, my first school. At Christmas, Mum left a bottle of West End beer out for Father Christmas, who came after I fell asleep, and left me a red Cyclops pedal car. I rode it alone, in a set pattern, like bus drivers did, around the local streets for 5 hours a day, pretending I was a bus driver. Back when I was 6, I don't think parents in Adelaide even knew about child molesters, so I grew up with complete freedom of movement. I used to hand out tickets to imaginary customers on the bus, pretending I was a driver. The first word I ever wrote was Aspro. My grade 1 teacher flipped her wig and called the other teachers in to see the smart kid. Adelaide kids in grade 2 all got a WIG table book, W-I-G-G. Its colourful diagrams made it a pleasure to learn multiplication, and I adored it. In heaven, I'm going to look Wig up and thank him or her. I'm going there because Mum told me if I die first, I'll save a seat on the plane to heaven for you. Dad taught me to box by standing me on a chair so I'd be the same height as him, but when he gave me a few light taps on the cheek, I'd flinch and close my eyes. He gave up and lifted me back to the ground, and I got the idea he might think I was a sissy. So I jerked from the shoulder like boxers in newsreels did, and my perfect jab hit his nuts. He doubled over and got a bit angry and roared, "Don't you ever hit anyone there." He gave up coaching me and told Mum, "The boy knows enough." Dad worked for a while behind the bar at Hilton Hotel. At 6:30 he'd ride home on his bicycle smelling like beer. I'd only eat lean meat. Any fat I'd regulate to the edge of my plate before sneaking it out of sight and later on getting rid of it in the backyard. My grandparents had an octagonal glass that I couldn't bear to drink from. The reason for this is unknown. It was just a weird shape. I'd sit there at the table until my half-eaten meal became cold, then shed silent tears until my parents let me join them in the lounge room to listen to soap operas, quiz shows and serials on our radio. I'd pretend I was inside the adventures and mime the action. Mum and Dad played piano accordion and enjoyed the crooners Eddie Fisher and Vaughan Munro. One night, Mum went out ballroom dancing with Knight Barnett, who played the Wurlitzer organ during interval at the swanky Regent movie theatre. Dad sang, "I wonder who's kissing her now," and pretended to be sad. Mum said, "Almond tree blossoms give me headaches." She began lying down every afternoon, and Dad told me not to make noise. Peter Fitzgerald lived nearby at 11 Sarah Street, and his grandparents drank a bit. Peter looked like Alfalfa in The Little Rascals. Showing me a scar on the back of his head, he said, "It's from when me stepdad threw me down a well." We were born on the same day, but a year apart. I was 6 and he was 5. Until I met him, I played happily at home, but Pete helped me get brave by taking me to playgrounds, Brownhill Creek storm water drains and junkyards. Without his influence, I may have stayed shy and wimpy and developed into a banker or a lawyer. While Pete was helping the newspaper seller on the corner sell newspapers by yelling, "Get your news here, paper," I'd buy the cheap lousy brand of chewing gum, 4 pellets for 1.5 pennies, take them out of their second-rate packet, put them into Wrigley's chewing gum wrappers that I'd picked up from the gutter, and then I'd yell out, "Chewies here, 2p a packet." We were making a profit of 25%, which is not bad for a kid. A bank clerk visited our primary school to encourage kids to open accounts. After hearing about what banks did, we opened our own. Pete told his brother Mike, "If you put 2 shillings in our bank, after 2 weeks, we'll give you 2 shillings and 2 pennies. You'll make dough and get a free bank book." Mike became our only depositor. In 2 weeks, we'd pay him with interest, but that seemed ages away. The temperature reached 105 degrees Fahrenheit, but I put on my West Torrens Aussie Rules footy jumper made of wool, as usual, and went with Pete to kick the footy at Richmond Oval for 3 hours. Then we spent Mike's 2 shillings on lots of ice cream. 2 weeks later, Mike, a very good fighter, demanded his dough plus interest. I was at the zoo with my parents, so Pete had to face Mike's fist. Next day, Pete just grinned and said, "All that ice cream we had was worth 2 punches in the guts." Okay, chapter 3 coming up next time.